Okay, today I want to start with a question. Do you know what it is? It's lottery ticket. How much of you want to know the winning numbers for today's lottery? Like all of 6 numbers. Like, seriously, 3 people? That's like free money. You think there's something wrong, but literally, like I give you the right numbers right now, and tomorrow you will get the money. Well, maybe not next week, but still. Okay. So what I say to you is that I can tell you 6 technologies today that tomorrow, if you bet for them, will give you your job, your success in your career, and your future in IT technology. Do you want to know those technologies? Yeah, not so much. Free money is a better way to do kind of in your life, but yeah, you know, the speed of innovation right now, the rate of which new technologies, new trends emerge, it feels like a lottery to us. If I today put my bet on this technology, will it be tomorrow? Will it secure my job? 5 years ago, the people who bet on Kubernetes, today, they won. People who bet on Docker Swarm, not so much. A year ago, an Istio, if you bet your time on Istio last year, today, well, it's almost win. If you spend your time on Linkerd, well, it's like 5 of the 6 numbers. Still, you have a win. And you will see how future rolls with that. But the most important question of them all, on what technologies to bet today and tomorrow. So, I'm Oleks from SoftServe. Right now, I'm a director of DevOps and Cloud Services, and my job is to prepare my company for the future. Decide what technologies, what trends, what things I need to be invested in, what time of our engineers will spend on this. Because tomorrow, never knows. It's a bigger stake for the company, just for you, for a single person, because the company spends millions on technologies, and if my company spent $1 million or $2 million on Docker Swarm, and then it just went off the market, it was a loss for the company. So today's, I want to start with a story first. And it's rather simple story, the one I would tell to my niece, would say. 12-year-old learning about Python right now. So, at the beginning, everything was simple. It was just servers, it was just CPU resources, and you configure that. You install operation system, you get the libraries, you get the platform, you get the Tomcat, you get the app deployed. Simple as that. Quickly after that, someone come up with virtualization, with virtual machine and hypervisor, summing it up into clusters, which are easy to manage to some extent, and giving the companies new capabilities for running more workloads on the same servers than it was before. That's why everyone at that point said, "Hey, virtual machines is the future," and they were right. There are people that said, "Hey, I maybe have a spare resources. I have a better team to manage these data centers, virtual hypervisors. So maybe I will do just that. I will manage the infrastructure for you, and you can run your workloads. And you forget about networking, all of those sorts of stuff, and we'll just sell it for a reasonable price." That was, to say, the first generation of the clouds or early era. There still wasn't much of the services and traditional cloud providers. This was like VDS, VPS, whatsoever. But soon after, people realized that, hey, those platforms, those operation systems that people use are pretty much the same. They all run Linux, they all run Apache, they all run Tomcat, they all run PHP. Why we don't automate that also and sell it as a service? Give the people useful means for using that platform, and just bring the either app or a platform, or not a platform, but the data, and we will manage everything at all for the small premium. And it's how the platform as a service was born. With that, the era of the cloud started. We can say this was the cloud 1.0, that where we saw the huge rise of the cloud providers, of new platforms as a services, and general trend for starting looking to public clouds. Shortly after that, the smart guy says like, hey, lots of the enterprise companies, solutions and applications are also using things like mail servers, DBus, RabbitMQ. Why don't we install and give them just a means like endpoint to use that service and forget about setting it up, updating it up, and managing and scaling those services? That's how the SaaS was born. And this was the first one, servers, where you don't need to manage virtual machines. The billing was easy. It's like, hey, you just get the gigabytes per hour or what CPU per hour, but you forget about spinning up and managing virtual machines and resources. Then this day happened, 7 June 2014, the K-Day, the saddest day in the history for Docker's farm, because the Kubernetes was released to the public. And for many, the era of containers in the cloud began from that, from Kubernetes, and the simple idea of the containers when we get rid of this boring stuff like operation system and leave only apps and libraries, the fun stuff, in the container, and replace this OS with just platform that abstracts this away. And cloud providers were very quickly get to the idea, hey, if we manage previous platforms, we can also manage the Kubernetes. And that was that. That's how the now known generation of the cloud exists, with containers as service as main offering, with all of the other services I mentioned previously. And this is how the cloud looks for one of 3 enterprise customers running production in the cloud. Containers as a services I use in one of 3 companies right now. Well, you'll ask, well, what's next? What is after that? And I'll ask you, what you think? What is next? Nothing? Just end? This is the state of the art, just top notch? Any ideas? Yeah, functions, serverless. Is the cool idea is like, hey, the app is bunch of the code that runs another code and you get the result. So it's functions. Let's get those functions into the cloud. Make it as a managed service, giving you an ability to put your code, just code, configure the endpoints for that code and how you get your results of that code and how you trigger the code. But that's it. You don't need to manage anything. And this is how in the recent year also one of 3 enterprise customers in their production workloads started to run their applications. I wouldn't say it's legacy applications that were rapidly migrated, but the new platforms that were delivered and deployed in recent years, those pretty much using some or most of the function as a service capabilities. And one more thing, hybrid cloud. You know, the enterprise companies, they were for long. They also see this journey, things breaking up. They also saw this journey and started with virtual machines, and they accommodated a lot of the resources. They put a lot of the investment in their platforms, thus having private cloud, and then started to move in the public cloud, but still wanting to keep their current infrastructure. Their current investment still didn't pay off completely. That's why they still keep it all, and they want to get this under one umbrella, under one managed solution. This is how the hybrid cloud come together. And you may be wondering, okay, this is a cloud. Where DevOps? How DevOps evolved together with the cloud? And I have the answer to that. In the generation 0, those servers, the typical job of the DevOps at that time was mostly focused on automation and development, the frameworks, automation tools, scripting, then configuring, and the last one was the process. Heavy focus on deep dive, tuning the system, tuning the interfaces, getting the platforms installed, developing new tools to allow you to get this on a scale for your company. Then with the first generation of the cloud, with the platform as a services, where the cloud providers already automated the installation of the platform, some of the useful things like backups, rollbacks, and whatsoever, there was less of custom development and automation to do for us. That's why we started to focus on the configuring those platforms and better process for the delivering the platform, the application, the infrastructure, the whole solution. That's it where we rapidly started to shift our mindset for doing less of development, more of the process. Then containers, they took and bring more new features, new development capabilities, new deployment capabilities, having most of those features out of the box. Advanced deployment strategies, rollbacks, clustering, all of that doesn't require much from the people. You, in your daily job, okay, some of us still had to go and configure Kubernetes to trick and deploy something, but it was easier. You don't need to develop Kubernetes first, or framework for doing that. The tools was already available for you. All you needed is a couple of the manifests, put the process in place, maybe write provider, driver, and plugin to make it tuned for your infrastructure. But this was it. We see the shift of the focus on configuring the platform and making the right process for delivering the infrastructure and application, less of the development and automation here. And there was a come of the function as a service, the third generation of the cloud, we see that less and less of work that engineers have to do to get the platform, for running their code. It's already done. Oh, it's already done. Hey. 1, 2, 3, I'm back. Get in line. So less of the automation. Still you need to do some, but you have tools like Terraform. Still you need to write those Terraform scenarios and all of this stuff, but less of things you do. And the process and how you configure this platform was the most important stuff that becomes on the focus of your business, of how cost efficient you use the resources that provided you by the cloud, by the things you use, by the tools you use, how efficient you, how is the configuration, is it good, how is the process, is it fast and efficient, flexible, and able to deliver the business. So if you take on this big picture, you see most of us started in generation 0. We had deep dive knowledge of the system. We had to go configure stuff. We had to go and develop our own scripts, use the tools, or fill the gaps between the different tools. And this was our time. But if you look at Gen 3 and the people who join in our career, our job, our profession right now, don't have to do this. They don't have to compile the kernels, tune the network interfaces to allow more traffic to come in. Those things already done. All they have is the tools that already doing their job very, very well. There are a couple of the engineers who know the deeps, but they don't need to do that. In their daily job, they don't need to do that. And this is what at some point I didn't understand. I was looking to expand the current DevOps teams in the companies, and I was interviewing people, and I didn't understand why people they don't know how TCP/IP works. And you're like, hey, seriously? It's like he is not a engineer that I've seen grow with me. He is an engineer more for like operator of the framework. He knows how to run commands. He knows what will be the result. He doesn't necessarily need to know what happens inside or how those things works. And I was very pleased by this. Like, hey, you need to know deeps and downs. No, actually they don't. In their projects, in their daily life, they don't do that. They don't have to do that for being successful in their job. The whole time they invest in themselves for doing deep dives doesn't pay off as much as it was paying off when we were rising the culture and the DevOps itself in generation 0. So this brings us to right now. So what is happening? How all these paths that we came translates to now, the state of now, and how this now will get us to the future. So as you see, right now, within enterprise companies, the cloud is the must right now. All of them have some kind of the cloud. AWS right now has a widespread adoption, summing up to 85% of the companies will have AWS cloud right now. If you go to the enterprise, they already have, or plan, or experimenting, or plan to use this in the next year. So 85% right now. Little less with the margin comes Azure, then a little less of the GCP. But you may see that those numbers don't add up. It's like, hey, how you can have more than 100% of enterprises using the cloud? And I will answer that in the next slides. But look at this. This is now. It's not tomorrow. This is already cloud is the ultimate must for our success in doing our job and the success of our companies. Let's see how the cloud services grew over the last year. So if you see the adoption in 2019, the serverless containers as services, they grew as much as 40 or 50% over 1 year. And this growth says that, hey, right now, 1 of 3 companies serverless, 1 of 3 companies containers as services, but you also see that machine learning, IoT is also catching up. The growth of those services like stream processing, managed services are catching up, and those ultimately the platforms that makes our lives easier, our life easier, and you don't need to go deep to understand them. But this is like this year. What will be the next 2 years? And I have information on that. The research that were made, and this is the numbers. By year 2021, containers, serverless will almost double. This effectively leads us to 3 or 4 companies having these technologies. Machine learning, IoT, they will triple in their adoption in the production cluster. It's not something that we play on and forget about. This is the real workloads running in the production. So this is your answer. In 2 years, unless you know some of those technologies and spend your time on those technologies, you will hardly find any job. It's really hard to land something worth your time if you're not already in those fields. And if you're not, you have to go and get those things running and spend your time on learning that, because it will be extremely important for securing the future jobs, because current projects will eventually end up and there will be new projects. And if you don't know the ML, if you don't know what is IoT is or serverless, how to work with that, it will kind of make you not competitive on the market. With the last one before we go into the future, the multi-cloud. This is a strategy for which almost all of the enterprises choose. This is a combination, essentially what they mean by multi-cloud. This is a combination of their existing private infrastructure, private clouds, and public clouds. In many cases right now, enterprises looking into adopting multiple clouds, not only AWS, but also a GCP and Azure. And Ali Cloud, which is also growing in Asia as heavily as it was growing for AWS in North America. Right now we see the growth of the other cloud providers as well within enterprise market. And how all of this information forms our future. What will be the future of the cloud, of the DevOps? Well, things are coming up next. Seems obvious. One cloud provider is not enough. But this is the easiest part. If you already know AWS, you will be surprised that GCP is kinda almost the same concepts, the same services, different commands, few nuances, few details of how they do networking, of how those services work and those limitations. But if you spend a year on learning AWS, to get to the same level in GCP will take 2 times less time. So in 6 months, you will be as good as AWS with GCP as you as good as AWS right now. And after that, if you go into the Azure, it will take once again 2 times less of the time. So in a year, you can be good in 3 clouds. I don't say that you will be exceptional in those, but you will be good. It will be enough for doing your job. And if the need arises, you will go and look into that. With all that, one cloud not enough, multi-cloud strategy for enterprises, it also brings us for the question how we run our global applications, global solutions and platforms. And the answer to that already was given by the companies is service mesh. With the rise of the Kubernetes, microservices applications, and the whole idea for running your service globally, when all the providers and abstracting away all of the details and nuances of that, by year 2020, all production workloads in Kubernetes will have service mesh. In Google, it's already, you can enable this with one tick in GKE. Coming up in next year, you will be, you don't need to do that at all. It will be enabled by default. Linkerd, console, it's also tools that coming up next. To some extent, who will win the market, who will be more adopted, it's hard to say. Istio leading right now, but things may change. That's why we need to look forward and stay close to this to see how it will equalize in the market during the next year. With that said, with global strategy, we come to the thing that is called global platforms. With all that multi-cloud enterprises, we see the companies wanted to get this under one hood. They don't want to have 5 different teams, 5 different tools, and 5 different approaches for deploying their app, their solution to different providers. They want to have one platform to operate, to maintain, to update, to develop. And those platforms is like Pivotal, Antos, OpenShift. They have a huge rise right now. They have huge investment, huge adoption coming up next. I wouldn't say this will be like, hey, a huge year next year for those platforms, but they're gaining their velocity in the market. And this is something you need to look for. Everything as a service and a global platforms will be the key that will drive our future of the projects we do, of the work we do. And with that, most of the work will be automated. Most of the processes will be also click, done. Okay, I'm overly optimistic. Still, our job will be, hey, get this stuff together and make it work. There still will be gaps there what we will need to fill, but DevOps will also have to evolve and get one level up above the automation we typically used to do. And this comes is to new big trend which was known for a long time for measuring, analyzing, understanding your delivery performance of your DevOps organization, of your processes in the company. But right now, it was an option for top performing companies. In next years, it will be the baseline for all of the companies. The work of DevOps engineers will be closely related for gathering, analyzing, and tweaking the process based on the data we get from all of these platforms. We need to understand how we deliver the application, how we deliver the platform, how we build our processes around, and how those processes match, how we evolve, how we measure them and see them improve. Because business wants to know if we're spending money correctly, if businesses wanting to know and measure the progress we do, and all of those platforms already automated your work, they would say, hey, what you do? I'm improving, optimizing the platform. How you know? Without metrics, numbers to show, hey, this improvement, this change in the platform, this plugin we wrote, this gap we filled, increase the time to market or increase the speed of the delivery or reduced failure rate of the deployments to our platform. And these things can only be measured. It's something like, hey, I feel like it's getting better. It's nothing, your business, your tech leads will not approve that. Like, it's getting better. So with all that said, with the focusing on the DevOps, on the measuring, let's talk about last things. How the delivery of that will look like. CI/CD, expansion and evolution. Yeah, there are new things on the market. Data ops, ML ops, IoT ops. Everyone is looking to applying DevOps practices, DevOps methodology to the tools they're starting to use. Versioning of the machine learning models, predictions in the CI/CD. When your developer merges the code or is about to merge the code, he will get the error or message saying, hey, someone merged something different, or this database is not working, this is most likely what your code build will fail. Maybe it's not the right time to do that. This comes as a fantastic right now, but many of the companies, like Netflix, are already starting to do that. Having machine learning models analyze the typical workloads and things we do within our delivery pipeline, focusing on how to optimize the engineering performance of the company, so your engineers don't need to go to the Jenkins and investigate why this error is happening. Whoa. Once again. Yeah, I'm back in line. We need multi-tenancy, another speaker with a redundant host here. So, developers, getting developers aware of the tools we typically use. They don't need to spend their time investigating what the Jenkins build has failed or why an environment is not working. This information, to make their life easier, must be delivered to them in a human readable manner, sometimes with predictions. And this is, I see many of you are smiling like, hey, this is like making not our life easier, it's making developers' life easier. But ultimately this will also make our life easier if then developers, instead of going up and messing with your deployment pipelines, with your configuration, all they will have to do is get to read for their Slack messages, or if they want to trigger something, they just write something in a Slack bot, but they don't have to go and put in some comments in the line. And this is very important thing, abstracting away developers, engineers, QAs from the infrastructure, making them this a human interface between, making sure they don't run the wrong command, they don't do the wrong deployment. This is one of the key aspects in improving the productivity. That's a cool thing. I wouldn't say that will be very common in a year or two from now, but something to be looking for in the next 3 to 5 years, because the better tools for that are coming. The better tools are integrated to do that, the better data we get, the better we do machine learning will help us to achieve just that. And with that, we come into not so distant future from now, AI ops. Essentially, something only limited numbers starting to experiment right now. The companies that do that is companies like Netflix. And I'll explain what does it mean, the AI ops. The decisions that are made on the infrastructure, like scaling it up, scaling it down, redeploying something, restarting the service, migrating, initiating disaster recovery. Those are decisions that should not be made by the engineers anymore. With the speed and velocity of which we live right now, how would you say the 1 hour downtime of Facebook or Instagram or Netflix, how much does it cost the company? a lot. Even if this like, hey, it just was 1 hour, the stocks are down, business losing money, people going crazy, and it was a simple error, someone switched database or something like that. But it took 30 minutes to investigate that, and 30 minutes to fix that and test that and get back online. With AI-powered solutions, that investigation part, a decision made to switch back to backups, roll back some things, scale up, do disaster recovery, are made in a fraction of the second. It's no more late night calls, like 3 a.m. call, our site is down. We didn't want to have that, because you are sleeping, you're getting up, you get into your laptop, it's time. You sleep deprived, you just wake up, you start hitting the production, and you forget your password. It's like losing precious time. And for big companies, it's essentially millions and maybe billions of dollars for doing that. That's why our job will be help data scientists to analyze the data, together with them develop machine learning at first, and then move to AI field to teach that AI to make these decisions for you. And no, it sounds like, hey, I'm just cutting the tree that I'm sitting on, because if the AI will be doing the job for me, then what I'll be doing? You will be optimizing the processes. You will be going a level up after that, and you will be working more of the data scientist field, machine learning field, data analyst field, process improvement engineer. But the traditional DevOps, I would say, is dead. It was dead on generation 0 when a new DevOps emerged, more focused on the improvements in the processes. Then another death of the DevOps happened, and everyone at the conferences was like, hey, we don't do automation anymore, we just do the processes. Well, the processes maybe is the last remaining thing in our lifetime that we'll keep doing if we will stay in the IT. This one, I don't expect you to read that, especially if you're sitting long there. If you want, Google DevOps Cloud Trends on InfoQ. But what I want to explain here, you see there's the first two lines with late majority and early majority, the things that we're already doing, like continuous delivery, immutable infrastructure, logging in and log aggregation, those things that became normal for most of the companies right now. There are next one, yellow, early adopters that's starting to do new things, full stack tracing, continuous testing, fast and even business as a services, backup as a services, whatsoever. This is early adopters, and then this is innovators. We all want to work for those companies, but right now, frankly speaking, you need to win a lottery to get to work for those. You need to work hard to work for those. But if you see, this thing comes as a wave. This wave will slowly move to the yellow zone when those things like SRE and continuous testing will become a new normal. And then we'll slowly move into red zone, which ML at the edge computing with DevOps for data will become a new baseline. So to do that right now, I ask you, for preparing for the future, take those last two, yellow and red, when you have a free time. Look at those and pick things that you think, well, it's interesting to discover. Just go, look, read, and do something that you think this may be beneficial for your work, because a year or two from now, those things will be new norm for DevOps. And if you are not in those yellow line, you're going out of the business. You will be late majority, late adopters. You still will have your job, but those projects, many of you will say they're legacy. Well, we tend to think that successful people are lucky. But when you ask successful people what their luck, they will say that luck is about being informed, and prepared. Today, I tried my best to do just that, to inform and prepare for the future with you. Thank you. And now we have time for Q&As and your things about this, and I will come closer to you because, oh shit, it doesn't really work a lot.
Check.
Yeah. Yeah, that's better. So, what you think? What you think about the future of DevOps? What things you think are right? Maybe not. You not agree with those, but kind of let's talk about this one because we have time, and this is maybe the best time you get to talk about the future. No questions. All was good, and you agree with that? The direction is okay. Yeah.
Okay, hang a second. I will go with
Yep.
Mike.
Yeah. We'll just get away from the echo.
You mentioned about many of the clouds technology. What this means for the normal DevOps? This means that the new DevOps will be need to have super know-how about this all technology. How you see that?
So with that all new trends, there is a, I would say, certain level of the entrance that you need to kind of knowledge you have to accumulate and knowledge you need to spend your time on before you can jump into it. But going to the clouds becoming much easier. The entry level for the cloud is already relatively easy. Information is available, trainings are free, all of the stuff are free. Advanced stuff like machine learning, school technologies, global platforms, and they are still developing. There's very early stages of that, but this is something that you still need to look ahead for. And yeah, you are right here that DevOps will slowly shift from completely kind of knowing what is under hood to just understanding how to that configure, how to optimize the process, but not necessarily needing to know how the all of the global replication happens, how to tune that out, because it's already automated. It's done to the extent that you trust your cloud provider, the solution itself, to do this work for you. And at first, you know, those gaps that will fail you, that sometimes technology isn't perfect yet, but over the time they become perfect. They become just good enough for most of the people not to look at that platforms. That only like 5 to 10% of the engineers will be able to go and administer the platform itself, to go into deep into that platform, and slowly we'll see that this also goes away, because those services become everything as a service. Those platforms, even the pivotal platform or OpenShift, OpenStack that you install on your own premises, you need to know how to do that, how to configure that. Over the time, it will be just click and you roll this out. VMware right now working on the platforms where for looking like years back in how to configure and deploy the VMware on your make your private cloud was like, hey, you need a bunch of engineers, you need architect, you need a knowledge of networking, hardware, all of this stuff. Right now, to deploy the VMware cloud takes one engineer 1 hour. All they need to know is how to access the machines, plus up credentials, and all the job for doing that will be done automatically by the platform. You don't need to go and know how to run scripts, how to do the networking. This slowly is getting away from you. And it's okay. This is evolution. This is what makes our life easier. In the early beginning of the Industrial Revolution, everyone had to know how to kind of assemble things. Slowly, we get the factories, we get the robotics, the automation, less people working in those factories that was years ago. Then right now, less engineers will be working with the platforms. They will have to slowly move into level up, into developing the processes delivery and maybe pipelines, but not the automation itself. Answered your question? Yeah.
Any further questions?
I heard something before. Yeah.
So everybody could hear your question.
I got the impression that from your talk that DevOps is going to be out of fashion at some point. But how about the companies that still didn't even implement DevOps? There's tons of companies, and what do you think they will have to do?
They will catch up. Right now, my talk on Tuesday, I'm talking with a fintech, essentially the companies that, well, not quite made it to DevOps yet. And they are catching up. They do understand the importance of doing this right now, and right now they don't need to go through all of the steps of that evolution. They will be able to jump into the time that DevOps right now to use our best of the knowledge. So this catch-up process will be relatively quick. Yes, still there will be companies like, hey, it's just like we used to do this in traditional way, but those companies slowly will go out of the business or evolve themselves. And as we see the market trends, the companies who didn't adopt the cloud or didn't adopt the virtualization, they drop out of the Forbes 500, and some of the companies just went after the business or were bought by other companies who started to deliver faster, so started to deliver better products because they are able to deliver faster, get the feedback from the customer, and deliver a new product. And this is speed of innovation, speed of delivery, and overall speed of everything that it's drive those companies, hey, to catch up, and if you don't catch up, you go out of the business. So they right now are afraid, and they will do their best to get into DevOps, and with that, they will quickly catch up and start doing as everyone else, improving and getting level up, getting another level up. So, yeah, some companies still, like very few of them, will still have the traditional automation. We will develop everything ourselves, but this is not for all the time. This very small fraction will not be able to supply all of us our jobs, our career, if we choose to stay in this field. This ultimately will get us to the way we need to evolve and go to understanding what we do and how we improve, rather how to build the new automation tool, how to get those things together.
Any further questions? Last chance.
I don't know if this is a question or more of a remark. I don't know if I agree with you on the definition all DevOps and new DevOps. It's just more layers that come into play. So we are getting more specialized, but we still need people in all those layers. So I don't know what is your definition of DevOps, to be sure, because like 3 to 4 years ago, it was like mishmash, you do everything yourself. There are no clear layers and no clear boundaries that you act on. Now it's getting more and more specified. You do only small chunks of work, but you need more people that do those specialized chunks of work themselves. So like you need to operate on every layer, and there are people who need to still understand how every layer works.
Yeah, that's correct. Still, there need to be people that will be managing the platform. But with the platform becoming global, with the platforms becoming a managed solution for the customers, like many of the database services in the cloud, how many engineers in AWS you think support, develop, and maintain RDS? The platform, the database as a service that are used maybe by 2 or 3 million companies in the world for running their production workloads every single day. How much of the engineers there are? Your guess. 100. Less than that. Most of them are developers. So, with the go into the global platform, the number of engineers we need to do in low level is going less and less. Okay, there's still layers who do the process, some kind of automation, getting the things together, getting the deployment, but over the time, it also shrinks. The next layer, going about the big picture, culture of DevOps, is right now is something we see the expansion of, and more people that enterprise companies require don't need to know automation. What they need to know is how to build the process, to find the gap in the process, and how to fill up that gap or improve the process as a whole. They're not looking into people who will be doing the automation. They're looking into tools and platforms that are already on the market that can replace their IT departments, the development teams, the automation teams. And as much as I don't want us to lose that hands-on on the system, unfortunately, less of our time right now we start to spend on the developing something new. Right now, rather we use existing tools and just put the right configuration in those tools. The very little of the new we have to develop to make our business successful, and with the time, even that will be taken away. It's like, hey, I just configured the HashiCorp platform, not the Terraform, not the console. In my recent talk with the guys from the HashiCorp, the vision for the whole tool suite will be one window. You don't even need to do more than 20 lines of the code to configure the services. You just mention what the services you want and how you want them configured. Linked, what comes after what, and how you're gonna deploy your app. That's it. The 2 YAML manifests, I would say, that will do the job which right now takes a whole department to do. Eventually, there won't be one of 100 will be still doing something new, or platforms, or hands-on. And in some countries and some companies, this will come later, not in even 5 years, but it will come. I see you not agree completely with this, but we'll see. The future will tell. Right now, I see the trends when I talk with the enterprise customers that it's going this direction. What they prepare for their contingency plan in 5 years is reduction of DevOps, engineering in the company. They still need developers. This role will exist to some kind, but less of IT and operations, because those roles for their plan will be replaced by the platforms, by the cloud providers. Zero ops, less ops. Those trendy words that I start to hear from the last year into this year, most of the customers saying, hey, we need DevOps to implement this, but we want 0 people to manage this. We'll see. What would we? I think the business in the end will dictate how we'll go. Okay, guys, I think that's it in terms of the time. I hope this was useful for you. And I'm here all day. Let's talk. There's a software stand, and I'm there with the Cornelia. So if you have something to discuss, questions or your opinion, join us. Thank you.
Thank you.